Stranger Things 4 Part 2 was a blast to get through, but I wouldn't blame you if you were so entrenched in the story that you missed a few things here and there. Hey, it's Patrice with ScreenRant, and here's 15 details you might have missed in those last 2 episodes. The Wheeler family is full of loving and caring faces, including Nancy, Mike, Holly, Karen, and Ted. Actually, let's rewind that. Everybody in the family seems to care for one another like a normal family should, except for their father, Ted Wheeler. I'm sure you've noticed throughout the show, Ted has been the most lackadaisical of the family when it comes to the strange events occurring in Hawkins, to the point where it seems like he doesn't care at all. In fact, since season 1, Ted hasn't really been the most present father to his wife and kids. And it seems like Nancy nor Vecna is oblivious to his bad parenting, because when Vecna shows her disturbing visions of her family being taken out by the monsters of the Upside Down, she recalls all her family members but her dad. Yeah, even Vecna knew that man wasn't getting a #1 dad mug anytime soon. I mean, my guy voted for Reagan, so he couldn't be that good of a person anyway. That joke will probably spell the end of me in the comments. Speaking of the end of things, Hawkins is pretty much done for, as we are shown in the finale of this season. Despite everyone's best efforts in preventing Vecna from achieving his goal, Max's heart stopping for a full minute happened to be just enough time for him to open a gate between our dimension and the Upside Down, just like he showed Nancy in her visions. And hopefully everything else she saw doesn't come to fruition. Although we don't know how these sacrifices connect our world to the Upside Down just yet, because they seem to be a substitute for Eleven's ability to open gates herself, it seems that when the gate is opened in the town of Hawkins, it forms the shape of a giant X or cross. Most of us may have been too teary-eyed or in a state of shock after what happened to both Eddie and Max to also notice when the gate was forming, each end of that X happened to be where each sacrifice passed away. It starts off opening where Max is, then shows the road where the kid from the Hawkins newspaper passed, then the trailer for Chrissy, and finally the lake where the basketball player met his end. Hopefully in season 5 we learn more about why Vecna needed 4 sacrifices to make a giant X, and how exactly each of their passings enabled a connection to be made between our world and the Upside Down. Stranger Things wouldn't be Stranger Things without all the 80s film references it made throughout its run so far. Volume 2 of Part 4 was no different, and we found a handful that you guys might not have caught. Starting off with a couple of nods to one of the most famous horror novelists of all time, Stephen King. While Lucas is supporting an unconscious Max in the hospital, he reads her an excerpt from King's novel The Talesman. The section that he reads in particular is when a character opens their eyes, mirroring Lucas's hopes for Max to awaken from her coma. The Duffer Brothers are also working with Stephen King to bring an adaptation of the book to Netflix, though the project is still in its early stages. Additionally, The Talesman also includes both earthquakes and portals to other dimensions, which mirrors the events of this season. Another King reference is made when Max reaches into her mind for a happy moment to escape Vecna, that moment being the snowball dance from season 2. Even though this is a memory that Max seems to find peace with, Vecna still finds his way to her and goes on to ruin the moment with imagery similar to that of Stephen King's Carrie. In the 1976 adaptation of the book, the famous prom scene is very similar, with lots of red tainting the very blue atmosphere, and a girl who freaks out and uses telekinetic powers similar to that of Eleven. Stephen King continues to be one of the greatest sources of inspiration for the Duffer Brothers, so it's fitting that they pay homage to the writer whenever they can. The Duffer Brothers are also known for styling many of their characters after popular icons of the 80s. Again, volume 2 of part 4 is no different. During the scene in which Team Nancy starts preparing for their battle with Vecna by going to the weapons store, Robin and Steve coincidentally spot Robin's crush, Vicky, though to their disappointment, it seems she has a boyfriend. During the scene, we can see that Vicky's outfit is styled completely after Molly Ringwald, and her character, Samantha Baker, the protagonist from the 1984 film 16 Candles. Everything from the skirt down to the hairstyle is modeled after the character. Fortunately, Robin can learn more about her style, because in the finale it turns out Vicky is most likely bisexual. The happy ending we wanted for both of them. But before the gang could even approach that weapons store, it was important to remember that the whole town was basically on a witch hunt for poor Eddie. In order to avoid our boy getting spotted and probably taken out by the basketball team specifically, Max gives him a Micheal Myers mask. While you probably didn't miss this reference to the classic horror film Halloween, because I mean, how do you miss Micheal Myers? I know you all have eyes. What you may have wondered was, where did they even get the mask? Its appearance wasn't out of nowhere, as the decision to use the disguise comes from Max, who showed she owned the mask back in season 2 while the kids were out trick-or-treating. That's not the only Halloween reference in these last 2 episodes though. The final showdown between Vecna and Team Nancy features the trio setting him on fire, then Nancy shooting him with a sawed-off shotgun until he falls out of a window and disappears. This finisher is a reference to how Micheal Myers was taken out in the original Halloween film. Though Myers wasn't set on fire and was taken out with a pistol instead of a shotgun, everything from being shot multiple times to falling out of a window and disappearing was remade during Vecna's defeat. And just like Micheal Myers, Vecna will be back. Alien Resurrection also gets a quick nod in Volume 2. During the scene where Hopper discovers the lab of multiple Demogorgons in the Russian prison, we see each of the Demogorgons being locked up in tubes while being submerged in green liquid. This lab and tubing look eerily similar to the one shown in Alien Resurrection. And while the film isn't from the 80s like most other references in Stranger Things, it does star Winona Ryder. And since she's also in those Russian scenes, it's most likely a nod to her role. When Enzo gets Yuri to finally stop playing around, he gets to him by referencing a Russian conflict Yuri took part in. The conflict Enzo was referring to was the very real 7 months clash between China and the Soviet Union at Damansky. While this conflict was a very real part of our history, the Stranger Things universe makes Yuri a well-known hero from the clash. There are also a bunch of tiny details that were thrown into the backgrounds of scenes or were just not the core focus. Here's a quick rapid fire of just a few things that I found. The logo of the weapon store happens to be the exact same style as the Top Gun logo. In the Russian surveillance room, there's a not so appropriate drawing of a male private part on the wall. Yeah, real mature guys. There's a Garfield mug in Eddie's trailer because Garfield references should always get some shine. And Hopper and Joyce are wearing Hulk Hogan t-shirts. There are also a couple famous movie lines that get quoted in Volume 2, one being the famous Star Wars gag, "I've got a bad feeling about this," which has been said in almost every movie, being echoed by Murray during the drive back to the Russian prison.
I don't know. I have a bad feeling about this.
I don't know, Jim. I got a bad feeling about this.
And the other quoted line being from Pulp Fiction when Robin says,
"I don't believe in a higher power or divine intervention. That was a miracle."
Referencing Samuel Jackson's line in the film.
You know what divine intervention is? What just happened here was a miracle.
In episode 8, we get a conclusion to the story of Eleven and Dr. Brenner as the doctor meets his tragic fate when trying to escape the military. What was straight up bitter was that before the military even attacked, Brenner handcuffed Dr. Owens to a pole, stopping him from making an escape. And when the military confronted Owens, they weren't kind enough to help him out either. As a result, the storyline concluded with Owens being handcuffed to that pole, and with all his colleagues being taken out by the military as well, we're all left wondering about the fate of Dr. Owens. Yet another thing season 5 has to give us answers for. The Dirty Dozen film series gets referenced by Murray when he challenges Hopper's decision to go back into the Soviet prison.
This is Dirty Dozen stuff, except there are 4 of us.
3. Actually.
Which, I agreed, did not seem like a very smart idea. But if you're not familiar, the Dirty Dozen in the films is a group of 12 convicted unalivers trained and led by a US Army major with the mission to take out a bunch of German officers during World War II. So Murray actually raised a good point when he said that they weren't as prepared as them. In the epic fight between Hopper and a Demogorgon, he uses a sword to slice the creature up in one of the coolest final fights of the series. The sword that Hopper picks up is very similar to the Dungeons & Dragons Sword of Cass. In the game, the Sword of Cass is a sentient longsword that was once wielded by Cass the Bloody-Handed when rebelling against Vecna. So it's fitting that Hopper got to use it to fight off a Demogorgon and badly handicap the Stranger Things version of Vecna in the process. Now, this has been everywhere on social media, and it's most likely that you may have caught this, but after talking to a couple friends who somehow didn't catch on, I thought I'd add it into the list because maybe it wasn't as obvious as I thought. What I'm alluding to now is Will's sexuality. It's been hinted at throughout the show, but it seems that this season his feelings have reached a climax with him breaking down in the back of a car when talking to Mike, and having a conversation where his brother tells him he'll accept him no matter what. While it still isn't blatantly stated, it is heavily implied that Will is definitely not straight, and we can only hope that season 5 brings his character arc full circle, having Will come to terms with his sexuality and coming out to his friends and family, if he wants to, of course. Last but not least, Jason's well-deserved fate being split in half with the opening of the Upside Down Gate was foreshadowed earlier in the season. When Lucas has his first hangover, Jason says,
First hangover feels like you're gonna split in two. You'll live.
And the Duffer Brothers took that split in two feeling just a bit too literally, as his final moment showed his upper body being separated from his lower. And all of this could have been avoided if he just minded his own business and left Lucas and Max alone. I'd even argue that Max would have been okay if Jason hadn't intervened, because he broke the cassette player, leaving her with no way to escape Vecna's wrath. So yeah, bye bye Jason, you won't be missed. But I'm sure that Jason's fate mirrors the split hearts most of us are suffering from after that very emotional finale. Eddie was such a cool character and he should have gotten the chance to fix his reputation. And Max, man, I still can't rewatch that scene. It was given some very strong Mr. Stark I'm not feeling so good vibes, except much more severe. That's all I've got for you guys this time. I'm getting back to joining Max in that coma until season 5 comes out.